The following is a conversation with Dr. Shovan Saha from India. Dr. Saha is an associate professor in occupational therapy at MCHP, Manipal, India, with dual responsibility of a clinician and an academic. He is also the president of Indian Society for Hand Therapy. He has represented India at the Global Summit of Assistive Technology at the World Health Organization headquarters in Geneva. He is involved in projects with the World Federation of Occupational Therapy and World Health Organization. Let's welcome Dr. Saha. Occupational Therapy Around the Globe series is created with an intention to foster global communication in the occupational therapy world. Each episode will feature a guest or delegate representing their country. The discussions are purposefully driven to understand occupational therapy from the country's perspective, specifically surround the topics of history of occupational therapy, the awareness levels in the country, what does OT education entail, the licensure, a scope of practice, the current situation of the profession in the country, and future of occupational therapy. Let's start with a brief history about occupational therapy on how it started in India.
Yeah, it's you are conducting this interview, from California, and the start of occupational therapy in India is deeply connected with United States, because it was way back in 1930s, when an American lady, although at that point of time she was not an occupational therapist, she was an educationist by the name of Elizabeth, and she belonged to a very famous, what they call it as Quaker family, which I am not sure whether this word still exists, but it used to be. They are essentially families which are involved in banking services. So she came to India, married to an Indian those days, and then she decided to embrace India as a country. And then she participated in India's freedom struggle, freedom movement. She was part of the women's rights at that point of time, before pre-independence. And then her husband requested her, the Indian husband requested her that she should take interest, because her background was into education. And interestingly, she brought the system of kindergarten, to India. She introduced this to India at that point of time, somewhere 1940s. During that process, she was quite concerned, and she was quite moved with the, the plight of children with disability and their parents, So that is what inspired her to do something in the field of disability. And that is when it was by chance that she landed up with an article by Helen Willard that really moved her, and she took a decision that this is what she wants to pursue. And it was quite strange that at that point of time, when she decided to do occupational therapy and undergo a training of occupational therapy, she was 45 years old and having a kid of 10-year-old. She chose to pursue this career, and she set a sail by ship from India to United States, and she enrolled herself in the Philadelphia School of Occupational Therapy. Okay, when I'm not sure whether the school still exists. So she enrolled her, and in fact, in the memoirs of that college, her name is still there, because when she came there, she was on a sari.
Oh, okay.
Okay. She did the entire course. In fact, when she adopted India as her country, she changed her dress. she took over SARI. So thereafter, she had extensively traveled across the world as an occupational therapist, as a champion for the cause of people with disability. And you will find her only on saris. So she was not only championing the cause of disability in India, she was also championing the cause of the traditional Indian women's attire. So 1945, she had gone to US to get herself trained. 1948, she came back to India. And at that point of time, nobody knew about occupational therapy in India. Okay. And then she was quite a determined lady, very motivated, very determined. Once she has decided, means she is going to pursue it till the end. And that perseverance paid off, and she got an opportunity to start the first occupational therapy school, okay, of entire Asia in SAFE GS Medical College and KM Hospital, Mumbai. So that is how the first OT school, 1915 November, the first OT school was set up in India, and that was incidentally the first OT school for entire Asia as well. Because that time she was, it is very interesting to note that people from entire Asia, including there are in the archives, there are records of OTs from Burma, Malaysia, Singapore, this entire, East Asian countries. So people had come there, and today occupational therapy, in those countries, the pioneers or the starting point always has been Elizabeth Lundy. Of course, her adopted Indian name was Kamla Vinimkar.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is a little background on how it all started in India. It's quite inspirational.
Yeah, it's very, very inspirational. Like to have that sort of a motivation to travel across the world and bring back their education at that age is definitely an inspiring story. It has brought a lot of changes for India as a country as such, for our profession.
Yes, definitely.
So what does occupational therapy mean to you? And like, how did you start your journey with occupational therapy?
Mm-hmm. I entered into occupational therapy program in my bachelor's way back in 1989. I did my bachelor's. Those days I was staying in Delhi. My family was in Delhi. And then from Delhi, I went to Orissa, that is National Institute for Rehabilitation Training and Research, Nirtar. Of course, now it is SB Nirtar. And I did my bachelor's from there. So I was there from 1989 to 94. And my introduction to occupational therapy, those days you do not get that much of information because no internet.
Right. Yeah.
So it was word of mouth. One of my family friend and school friend by the name of Mr. Anupam Lahiri, who is right now based in United States. Okay, and so he had enrolled for this program, and it was through him that I came to know about this profession and its scope, and that kind of triggered the interest. And I was just 1 year junior, so next year I took up the All India Entrance exam, got through it, and I landed up in Orissa for my bachelor's. Then 94, 96, I was in Bombay for my master's from Lokmanya Tilak Municipal Medical College, Sion Hospital. My master's in hand rehabilitation. And 97 end, I came to Manipal, where I took over as, in charge of the program here at Manipal. And then since then, I'm here. And 1912, I completed my doctoral studies on assistive technology outcomes. So that has been my academic journey.
Yeah, and Like those days, even in my times, like occupational therapy was not so popular as a profession in India. And like during your time, I assumed there would be like, I mean, you really would have had to struggle to create that awareness about occupational therapy when you started the program as well, being that foundational structure and starting from up there. What has been your most inspiring story or most memorable OT incident, you would say, with your patients or yourself as while you were studying or in your practice?
Like any other student, there is an element of anonymity, identity issues, you know, unsure. At times you feel lost. So I had my share of, going through those processes like any other student. I always used to hunt for those, key aspects which will help me kind of profiling the profession in my mind, so that I get a right structure. I always used to evaluate or judge other professionals, other students, and I used to find that they seem to be quite sorted as to who they are, what they are,
Yeah.
and I realized that probably they have an advantage because their profession is uh, more known, so people are already aware of it.
Yeah.
So they already have an advantage. They really don't have to do that kind of fundamental work, that basic work that this thing. And unfortunately, we didn't have that. Okay, uh, so when I'm profiling my profession in my mind, I need to factor in that aspect. So that is how I have to look at this thing. So in my early days, I figured it out that, as an occupational therapist, we deal with function, So this everybody knows. There is nothing. What I understood at that point of time is, as an occupational therapist, we are talking about function, and often uh, we may not see the end product of the function. That means the word function essentially is very theoretical in our approach. And that really hit me. That was one of the turning point. And that is what I started pursuing that has to change in my mind. So when I talk about function for my patient, I should be able to walk the talk, you know. So that really was one of the defining moment for me, and that I really got hold of that at my very early stage. So that was one this thing, and the other thing, as you mentioned about the defining moment, it was after my masters, when I also had my share of dreams of traveling to US and have a better life. After my masters, many of my classmates, they were appearing for different exams, but I could not. I failed. Those days we used to have what is called as TSC, Test of Spoken English.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, and I appeared that exam for 3 times, and I couldn't clear. So when I could not clear that exam the third time, and that was another turning moment, and I said to myself that I'm not going to attempt this exam hereafter. Okay, and I dumped my dream of traveling abroad. Okay, and I said that I'm going to stay back in India and probably do my bit uh, for my country, and let's see how I can change things in my own little way. So that was another defining moment. And about inspirations, yes, I would say every patient, the change that we bring in the patient, every change is an inspiration for me, and that keeps me going. Yeah.
And like many times we say, like when one door closes, there's so many doors that open up for opportunities. And I think that turning point where you could not travel abroad and you decided to stay back in India, that actually has brought so much in terms of occupational therapy in Manipal. That's how the whole program was born, and so many students today benefit out of it. So I think it's definitely, it has brought a lot of positive changes for Manipal and Manipal's history as such. So in your words, how would you describe occupational therapy? Not apart
Yeah.
from standard definitions, in your own words, what does it mean to you?
Yeah. So occupational therapy is quite simple. Okay, occupational therapy is quite simple, but the path to achieve that can be little long, little complex, little arduous. Okay, so why I say simple is it is because we try to achieve things that we perform. So we are already exposed and experienced. So it is like we engage ourselves as a professional to restore the ability to eat, ability to write. Okay, so that even I eat,
Yeah.
I write. Okay, so it is an exposure and it is an experience that we, on a daily basis, we do go through that process. So there's nothing rocket science about it. Okay, now, so this is the simplified way of telling it, right? But there is a complex part to it, that how does it happen? How do I eat? How do I write? The interesting thing about human function is that as long as it is been performed, it exists. Okay, the moment I cease to perform that task, it does not exist anymore. So that produces certain level of abstractness to that. Say, for example, I'm writing. By looking at my written text, you will not be able to make out whether I wrote it with my right hand or left hand.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, you will have no idea as to how I wrote, how my grip was. Okay, you'll have no idea. So those things can be made up only when you are actually seeing the whole process. Now, what happens is, by looking at the writing, we often start speculating. Now, how do we speculate? It is we try to put our perspective of writing. So what I will do is I will visualize that, oh, I write with the right hand. So I take it for granted by looking at the text that probably the person would have also written with the right hand.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Then I hold the pen in a particular way. So I will also visualize that, oh, the person also might be holding it that way. I will have no idea that the person might have ended up writing with the left hand, and the person would have held the pen in a very different kind of a grip, okay, as compared to mine. So this understanding a performance with certain clarity, okay, with certain clarity in perspectives, that needs a certain skill. Once we understand that, that will become the foundation for whatever, activity as a means that we, to create that. And every time this activity that we use as a tool to treat the patient, okay, that has to be created every time. It has to be baked fresh. Okay, it has to be baked fresh. So that is one thing. And, the activity as an outcome, as an output, that there has to be a clarity in what is the output that you are expecting. And that output should be in consensus with the patient's need, not not our perspective. Often we end up thrusting our perspective. So for example, I'll give you a case. We had these young boy, 14-year-old boy, electrocuted, bilateral amputation. Okay, and all of us are struggling how this person can eat. Okay, so me and my postgraduate team, everybody unanimously, when it was asked, okay, let us think what would be the first priority for the individual. Everybody unanimously agreed that it is the individual's ability to eat will be on the on the top of the chart. Now what happened was, when these students started interacting with a child, everybody in their mind already it was preconceived that eating will be a problem. So the questions and the tone of interaction was already decided, right? And the child fell into the trap, and somehow the child told, okay, yes, right, fine. The child never realized that we are going to use these information as for deciding the therapy. Anyway, that question answer was over and the therapy started. Now all of us are struggling to how to make the child independent in eating. After 3 to 4 days, the child opens up and says, why are you breaking your head on my eating? I'm not interested. I would want to play solitaire on the computer. I don't have a limb, but I want to play solitaire on the computer. Okay, I'm happy that my mother is feeding me. I have no issues. But I want to play because my mother cannot play for me on the computer. That is my first priority. Please do something about it. Okay, so we were taken by surprise, right? And it can happen. It can happen to many of our patients. Okay, so that is what is very, very important, to be able to profile our patients the right way. And this is the long process.
Yeah, and I think you very interestingly touched on all the subjects, all the terms of activity analysis, being it a client-centered approach, making it more, on the client priority task versus us predetermining what may be their goals and making them a part of goals as such.
Yeah. You use the word client-centered. So let me just touch upon what do we mean by client-centered at our place. It is little different because I do interact with a lot of OTs and students, American students, European students. Okay, so here what we understand of client-centered is, we give the patient literally no direction. It is an empty, piece of paper for them to tell what they want. Okay, the moment we present the patient a guideline,
Yeah.
okay, to tell them what they want, then often, often the client-centered, the true meaning of client-centered might get lost. Okay, so we give them a blank sheet. So if the patient wants a remedial approach, if the patient wants a compensatory approach, okay, whatever they want, we would want them to write. And we have both these. We can remediate and we can compensate. Okay, whatever they want, you know, the food will be prepared according to their wish. Okay, we don't prepare half food and then say what you want. Because when we have prepared the half food,
Yeah.
it is the patient is already put in a particular platform, then we are asking.
Right.
Right. We don't prepare anything. Okay, we just say what you want. We don't give them a menu card. Because the moment you give a menu card, that means you are basically expecting the individual to fall as per the menu card.
Right. And that is so true in the sense of that if we give them the options, we are driving their decisions. We're driving their goals. And instead of that, they are the one who has to be driving their therapy, their treatment approach. And, we have to be following what their goals are. So that's a wonderful explanation around that point. Now, since the time you graduated from occupational therapy and moving fast forward to today, like the change in awareness levels have, taken place, like from when you started, even when I started occupational therapy, it was a different era. There was some awareness about it. So in your terms, or in your perspective, what changes do you see in India in terms of the awareness and the current situation?
Mm-hmm. Now, there are two aspects of awareness. One is because of the social media platforms. Yes, definitely people are getting to hear the word occupational therapy more. But it can be, I would want to use the word false positive. Okay. So it basically means people are more familiar with the word occupational therapy because it is just moving around, it is floating around the social media platforms. That does not necessarily mean that there is more and more people are actually understanding what is occupational therapy.
Right.
Okay. So to the extent people are getting familiar with the word occupational therapy, to that extent, people are not understanding occupational therapy. So that struggle still exists. Okay, that struggle still exists. So as an occupational therapist, it is very important that we drive the true message of the profession across. It is not sufficient for people to just understand or to just be familiar with the word occupational therapy.
Right.
Okay, so the challenges still do exist, uh, the of different proportions, right? So, if I were to say the percentage during my time and now, if you work out the percentage, it is more or less similar. But just because the population has increased, okay, the problems have increased, so it looks more familiar. But I might be a little skewed in my judgment, but I feel it is more or less on a similar platform during my time and now.
So, like, have you mentioned the awareness still feels similar? What what steps need to be taken or could be taken to change that?
I do take a lot of interest on this subject of awareness, promotion, and marketing. So I have a little radical view on this subject. I would say I am not really for using the word awareness. I am more for marketing. Okay. Why I say that basically is when we do awareness, we are not actually expecting anything. Okay, we just go, we inform people, we'd want them to understand, but we'd want them to understand and do what? How does it help me? Right? So it helps me only when individual will come back to me. Right? They have understood what is occupational therapy, and because I'm a service provider, right? I'm a service provider, I'm a healthcare service provider. So an individual, after hearing this information, they should come back to me. Now, to be able to do that, it has to be something more than awareness. Okay, it has to be little more intense. Say for example, say I have this pen. Okay, now if I have to tell about this pen, that okay, now what is this pen, this thing? So yes, there are 10 people who will see and they will say thank you and then walk away. Now, if I'm given the responsibility that I have to explain the pen in such a way that of the 10 people, one of them would want to buy this pen. Okay, so my tone will now change. The content will change. The intensity, the motivation, everything will change. Okay, because now I've been given a responsibility. I've been given a target, you know. So, with that has to be there. Okay, then only it will cut through the ice. Otherwise, just mere sending information, it will not take us much. Okay, I'm talking about Indian perspective, because many organizations, they are welcoming you that, okay, you come and speak about occupational therapy. The moment you say that, can you please pay my travel fare? Because I'll be coming from home to your place to, talk about occupational therapy. The moment you say that, I'm going to spend a couple of hours talking about occupational therapy, so I need a small token honorarium, right? You will find that most of them will back off. Okay, they will say that we'll get back to you, right? So till the point it was about awareness and you spending from your pocket, it is great. But the moment you're asking for something in return, right? So there always, it is not that every time you are expecting. Okay, there are times when you're not this thing, but we have to mold ourselves that way. Our delivery has to be that way.
Yeah, so like right around that point, how would they start valuing us as much, because they do pay for other professionals, they do pay for speakers who come and talk on different topics, right, on mental health, or maybe if there is a surgeon who is giving a keynote, right? So how to create that value, or what will help us, because it is an important profession as such, and we do bring a lot of change, which I feel like certain professions cannot. Like there are limitations to other professions in some ways, which, like for example, um, after surgery, like, hand surgery, a surgeon will fix the joint, I mean, the bones or muscles or nerves around it, but it's the therapist who has to bring back that function, right? The therapist has to bring back that routine, the ADLs in that individual's life that the person was doing before and want to do again. And that it's not in the hand of the surgeon to do. Like there's a limitation there where how much they can do, right? So that then lies on us. Like as a profession, we are the ones who work on those intricacies of their needs. So why is that value still not created, and how to create that?
Yeah. The place where I work in India, it is to avail this service, individuals have to pay off the pocket. Okay. Now that puts us in a very tricky situation. Okay. And at the same time, it is also helpful for us to experiment on all these things. Right? Now, if a patient is coming today, why will the patient come tomorrow? Just because you are telling they will not come.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they are going to, what they do is, they are going to see that whether for me to come tomorrow, okay, is it worth? So every day they are going to make these estimations.
Right.
It is the same way you walk into a restaurant. So you see the taste of the food and the price, right? So that is how you make a comparison all the time. And when the food is over, when you are coming out, you make these statement that was it worth an experience in terms of taste, in terms of ambience. So when you are spending out of pocket, we all as consumers, we all, make this estimation that was it worth. So the same applies here also. Okay, the same applies here also, that whether their experience was worth. Now, what is the experience that they are looking at? They are looking at outcomes. So they have certain anticipated outcomes, there are certain expectations. So are we matching that? And the money that they're spending, it is not only the money of the therapy. They travel, so that costs. They're spending time, they're waiting time. Okay, all these things are cost. So when you factor in all these things, it is a big amount. So they are going to make this estimation. Now, at the same time, I also need patience because I have my set of students. So here, unlike in US, okay, here in India, I'm both an academic and a clinician. So I should have students in my classroom and I should have students in my clinics. So for me to demonstrate things in my clinic, I need to have patients, right? So for me to have, as an academic, I need to have students. So I'm answerable to my college head, you know, and for my patients, I am answerable to the authorities in the hospital, right? So I need to rotate patients. And rotate patients, they will not listen to us unless and until we produce an outcome. Okay, so here it comes now. Going back to the original aspect of, the how do we do it? You mentioned that about conferences. My intent was this thing, that how do we achieve it on a daily basis, on a one-to-one basis, in our professional life. So it is the interaction that we have on a one-to-one basis, means it is you and your patient. Okay. So how do we create that opportunity, daily basis? And that will change our mindset, the overall mindset, that we have towards the profession. It will change the mindset, the way we approach the profession. Okay. So every time. So the selling point should be outcome. Then only it will get sold. So whosoever you're describing occupational therapy, you should be, outcome oriented discussions. Now here I would want to give an example, right? How I do it, right? So I'm supposing I'm explaining occupational therapy to a stranger. I'm traveling in a, train, bus, here, I'm just traveling on the road, I'm in a marketplace, and there is an opportunity where, I can explain occupational therapy to a person. Now, this has been my critical observation of explaining occupational therapy to people. And I took a position on that probably that is not exactly the way. So I have formed my perception of my judgment of doing that. So we often tell that, we restore, save human function. So they might ask, okay, what is human function? Somebody might say that, we help individual how to bathe. Now you are in the market. How are you going to demonstrate how to bathe? Okay. Supposing eating. How do we demonstrate in the marketplace that it is eating? So please give it a second thought that whether you are giving example, please look into the context where you are explaining the individual. Okay. So pick up an example that if required at that point of time, can you demonstrate? Right? So one of the easy things that I do is everybody having a pen in the pocket is one of the most common thing that you will have. Okay. So you can just pick up the pen from your pocket and give it to the person. Okay. And tell that, gentlemen, can you tell how do you write? The person will laugh at you, smile at you. The person will find that, okay, what kind of question is this? So then I ask the second layer of question is that, gentlemen, can you tell me that, just tell me a few words. So, very reluctantly, the person might say, what is big deal about it? I just take out the pen, open it, and I write. Yes, 2 sentences. Then I ask the person, that gentleman, do you know that how long it has taken for you to master the art of writing? Person doesn't know, obviously. Okay. So for all of us, the writing gets matured almost 7 to 8 years it takes. And that really opens their thinking process. So then we say that the skill that has taken 7 to 8 years to master, it definitely is not possible to wrap it up in 1 or 2 sentences. And that really hits them hard. Okay. And that gives them a realization that no, it is not a simple task. These fellows, as an occupational therapist, they are doing far more than what meets the eye. Okay. And that is when they start taking you much more seriously. So please to the audience, my suggestion would be that please do not try to explain occupational therapy with examples that are out of context in that context. Okay. So there is no wrong in giving example out of context, but it will not satisfy your need at that point of time. You will end up, seeing a body language that which often is unimpressive. We often say that, sir, I was explaining, but the person was not that interested. Okay, I explained, the person got even more confused, and the person ended up concluding that, oh, you do something which other professions do. We end up sending a lot of conflicting message when we are explaining. And this is a problem when we are trying to create awareness. Okay. When we try to do marketing, marketing is awareness plus economics. Okay. So when you do that, you'll be extra vigilant in how do you frame things. You tend to become much sharper when we do that.
Yeah, and this is such a wonderful demonstration on like the simplest and practical way that you can explain occupational therapy to others, in terms of selling yourself in a way, like, because you have to sell yourself first in order to create that demand. So this is a wonderful example. So this was in terms of like if you're talking to people out there selling services, right? So how about the take on when you want students to enroll in occupational therapy, right? So what would be like your top 5 points of why anyone should pursue occupational therapy as their career?
Now, yes, you did hit upon a very pertinent concern, pertinent challenge. Even I think so. It is happening in US as well. Where in a recent survey which is up there on the AOTA website about as the numbers, aspiring OTs, people who aspire to do occupational therapy, that number is coming down. Number of enrollment for the master's and doctoral program is coming down. So we look up to United States because they are our role model. Okay, so if such changes are happening there, it is going to impact us as well. Okay, so I am a mentor for the master's program with specialization in hand and musculoskeletal conditions. For me to pursue that particular program, conduct that program, I have my share of challenges. Okay, because orthopedics, musculoskeletal conditions in Indian context, it doesn't go very well with occupational therapy. I mean, people don't associate these domains with occupational therapy. So I have my share of challenges because I'm the supervisor. I have to make sure that I have the required number of enrollment for my program. Okay. So there were difficult times that I had gone through, for many years back, of course, for a couple of years. And I was being questioned for that. Right. And that was the time I did a lot of introspection, market analysis, a lot of soul searching as to how do I sell. I would rather use the word sell. Okay. How do I sell this program to occupational therapists? Why will they fall for this? Why will they fall for this other career option? Right. So after doing, a certain amount of market search and trying to understand, one thing I realized, that really educated me rather, in understanding these dynamics, how the market runs and how the whole approach would be, right? Interestingly, now it is a 2 years program, okay? Of course, the first year is, which is a rotatory, this thing, they don't come to us in the first year. So the entire second year they are with me. So I get a full 1 year to groom them, to influence them, kind of indoctrinate them, right? About the philosophy of, I hardly teach, because we exist in an age of internet. Books are with everybody on their palm.
Yes.
Okay. So, uh, I mean, there is, you have YouTube, you have such beautiful demonstrations of academic information, much better than what I can probably teach in my classroom. Okay. So there is no dearth of those kind of resources. So the dearth is about experiences. Okay. So that resource does not exist. So in the whole program, a lot of emphasis is given on how to crack the market in the domain of orthopedics, in the domain of musculoskeletal conditions, in the domain of hand rehabilitation in the Indian market. Okay, how? Because if a student, ultimately, what is the student expecting? The student is expecting to go out in the market, perform, and create a decent living for themselves. Okay, create an opportunity for themselves. Okay, to be able to recognize in the market about what they do. They should be able to impact the society that they live in through their professional credentials. Right. So that is first and foremost. So we picked it up. I did pick it up, and the entire discussion revolves around these aspects. Okay. This is how perception of a profession is created that way. Right? So it has to be, the perception of a profession. In fact, I had written to the author who did that survey for AOTA, okay, about sharing my perspective and my journey, right?
Yeah.
So, this has yielded result. This has yielded result today by God's grace. For this elective at my place, okay, I do have a continuous, steady flow of students every year. Okay, and again by God's grace and with our effort in India, hand and musculoskeletal conditions. Okay, our students are entrepreneurs. They are starting their own enterprise. Doesn't matter. There aren't that many published jobs available. Okay, but India gives an enormous opportunity to start things by themselves. Provided that they are in the right frame of mind. They are mentally in that space where they are wanting to take up that risk of an entrepreneurial journey.
So, and you say it by God's grace, but I definitely know it's far beyond that. There's a lot of hard work that went into that. There's a lot of your time in coming up with those kind of innovative ideas on how do I keep them engaged, or how do I empower them by giving them value and quality skills that they would be able to use throughout their lifespan. In as as they're venturing into entrepreneurship or starting their own ventures out there. So,
Yes.
in terms of education in India, so what would be like a general outline about requirements for any student who is looking to enroll in occupational therapy anywhere in India, and like a general, like a outline or a course structure, like, how many years does it entail and what are the specific requirements for graduation?
Yeah. In India, for the minimum requirement for entry into a bachelor's program is uh, +2, 12 years of school education. That is one of the requirement. Then you have to have science as the background. So these are the two entry requirements. Okay. And yeah, as regards the occupational therapy program in India, there is a standard duration. It is 4 years of academics and 6 months of internship. So 4.5 years program in total, followed by the master's program in India is, there is no entry level masters in India. These are all post-professional masters. So you have to successfully complete 4.5 years of a graduate program, and then you enroll for the master's program. In India right now, we have 20 plus recognized WFOT affiliated programs at the bachelor's level. The exact numbers of the master's program, I'm not sure about it, but it will be around 12 to 15 colleges with the master's program. In India, the master's program are all elective based. That means you specialize in certain domains. So the domains essentially revolve around 4 domains: musculoskeletal conditions or orthopedics, neurorehabilitation, child rehabilitation or pediatrics, and mental health. These revolve around these 4 essential domains. Okay, and there are certain centers where the doctoral studies have begun. Manipal, where I'm addressing this, we also have doctoral programs there. Yeah.
Is there a licensure requirement in India? I know there is, but I'm asking it for our audience. Is there a license requirement? Is there a national licensure or state-wise licensure as well? And what is the minimum requirement for bachelor, graduate, OT, go into a job or start practice, or you need a master's as the minimum required?
Yeah. As per the law of the land, in India, a graduate qualification is good enough for you to land in a job. Okay, it is legally permitted. Okay, but it would depend on the organization that you are applying for. That organization can lay down their priority. Okay, and so if they need a master's, then they will be taking a master's probably. Then you are not eligible for that. But as per the law of the land, legally you can practice after the bachelor's program. Yes, as of now, we have All India Occupational Therapist Association that offers the license to practice in India. Okay, but now we are in a transition phase. The Indian occupational therapy as a profession is into a transition phase where at the government level, Government of India level, there is already an act that has been laid down. It is taking its time. Gradually it is getting implemented, and then there will be a national registry, and we all have to acquire the license to practice from that agency, the Government of India agency. So I think so in the next couple of years, everything should get streamlined. Okay. As of now, it is desirable that you have a license from All India Occupational Therapist Association. Okay. But it is not a binding.
So, like how you mentioned, it's going to slowly transition to the Government of India for the licensure requirements. So, do these associations would they become obsolete? Would they still be in continuation as a parallel entity?
Mm-hmm.
And then, what would be the comparisons or difference in the benefits both organizations provide?
Yeah. I'm not very sure as to what will be the existence of the current body, but I think so. It will continue to exist because the act by the Government of India, they will. The purpose of that is little different, and the organization, certain purposes it has to forego. Okay, say for example licensing and all, but it will continue to exist to conduct a lot of academic event like the national conferences, the state level conferences, its branches. These kind of academic meets will continue to happen under the patronage of the current body. Okay, so that is an act which will probably offer the professional affiliations. Okay, it will look into the credentials of the curriculum. So, to my understanding, it is not yet clear. Okay, with time only things will get clearer. But to me, probably the roles will be quite distinct.
Like in terms of OT practice in India, what changes have you seen over the years in OT practice in terms of the practice areas and also in comparison to conventional OT versus, now the millennial or Gen Z OTs that are going to come out in future? What changes in approach do you see, and new areas, are there new areas emerging for practice of OT? Yeah.
So if you look into the pattern, if you go back to the history, how it started, how OT started in India. It started with Kamalavi Nimkar, who laid the foundation for occupational therapy in India. It started with working with more of musculoskeletal problems. Okay, for that is what she brought, and that was the first thing to start with, and then slowly, strangely, that kind of phased out, and there was a time when the practice of occupational therapy in India is heavily dominated in the domain of pediatrics. Still, it is okay, but there has been endeavors and initiatives by individuals to kind of expand the scope of practice. And even in pediatrics also, there has been, individuals with their personal determination, to branch out into certain niche areas. Okay, so things like ergonomics, sports, okay, in a hand, in neuro rehab, in mental health, So these things it's quite heartening to see that of late, maybe last 6-7 years, the younger professionals, they have been demonstrating a lot of grit and determination to pursue things in a different way. Of course, uh, 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 not necessarily the training that is provided. It is also the exposure to the internet, the information, the development that is happening elsewhere. So the younger professionals are wanting to walk that extra mile to embrace the new thing. They're acquiring a lot of certification because they are now more accessible through online mode. Okay, so it has helped. So it's quite encouraging the way it is progressing, but I would have wanted it to be progressing a little faster. Okay, so for many years it has been heavily dominated by practice in the pediatric area, but things are changing.
Yeah, and this series is also like my tiny effort to, increase that accessibility, increase that equity and access to information around the globe. So students can get familiar with different countries if they want to travel across countries to learn or to get some experience in the OT world. So where do you see the future of OT? If we talk about the future of occupational therapy in a few years or, maybe 2-3 decades later, where do you see it heading to? What changes do you expect or you foresee?
There are concerns and there are euphoria. Okay, so now what are the concerns? Why it is concerning? Why it concerns me? Because the competition, if not the competition in the market is multiplying. With an internet is a boon, but internet also brings certain concerns because at today's date, the patients, our clients are, so well informed. So you really cannot take them for a ride.
Yeah.
Okay. You really have to be, they are quite judgmental. They can really judge you. They can evaluate you, what you're doing, what you're saying. The next moment they can really make a decision based on that. Okay, we will find it later, whether it is right or wrong, but they would have judged. Right? People are traveling. Okay, everything is happening in real time. We both are talking. I am in Manipal, thousands of kilometers away. We are talking to each other in real time, right? So at this moment, which is of so energizing moment. Okay, there is a word of caution. What is the word of caution is, so in this moment of so much of energy and excitement, if we are trying to sell occupational therapy by saying that, the outcome will take time, we are unsure about the outcome. We are not able to pinpoint the outcomes, right? Then we really have a challenge. Okay, we really have a challenge to prove ourselves, to sell ourselves in the market, to be able to compete, right? So that is the excitement and the challenge. So if we cannot position ourselves, factoring these things in the background, and if they are not in our, in our discussion frame, then we are heading for difficult times. But if we can factor in these things, okay, because see, occupational therapy as a profession, it is a very powerful thing because we change human functioning. Okay, we change human function because the identity in our society, the identity as an individual in our society is based on how we perform, right? It is like as an occupational therapy, till now, as you are graduating, you are all equal. There is a batch of 40 students and they're all equal. You are all tagged as student of occupational therapy. The moment you graduate, and you enter the market, the society has its own way to judge you, and they are going to, position you as first, second, third, fourth. So that means there will be one person who will top the chart, based on the perception ranking of the society, and there will be one person who will be 40th in the rank. Okay, and that is based on, essentially, it is based on your ability or your skill to produce outcome, tangible outcome that can be seen, outcome that can be recorded, photographed, videoed, So I can send a video from India to US to you, and without my presence there, by looking at the picture, by looking at the video, without my explanation, you should be able to tell that yes, from day one, on day two, there is an improvement.
Right.
So that is the tangible outcome. And as an occupational therapist, we really have to break our head, come up with strategies, whatever may be your domain, please do come up with strategies, ways, means to produce an outcome, however small it is.
Yes.
But it has to be tangible. We cannot push down the throat of our clients saying that there is a change.
Yeah.
They should appreciate. They have to experience, they have to feel, they have to vouch for it, they have to endorse, not we.
That is such a powerful message.
Okay. So then only we will be, riding on top of the wave. Otherwise, we probably will be under the wave. Okay. So that has been my euphoria and concern as well.
Yeah, so those are like two sides of the spectrum on the future of OT. It could go either ways, and it's actually on us to try to make sure the ship sails in the right direction. So you did touch up a little bit on my next upcoming question, which was about what would be one advice that you would give to a newbie OT who is like just graduated and entering, the practice world out there? What would be that one piece of advice you would give to the student?
Yeah. So let us keep it very simple. That would be my first advice, that keep occupational therapy very simple. It is as simple as we restore human function. That is number one. Number two is take all those steps to ensure that you have seen that function happening on the individual. So if you have identified that my patient needs to write, okay, you would have seen the individual actually writing. Now, when I give this example, what I basically mean is that you would have found out that why does he need to write? Okay. So we have patients who come and say that, do something so that my writing ability can last through the 3 hours of exam writing. Okay. So that is the specific requirement. So they're writing one sentence in front of you, you probably cannot conclude that we have restored the capability of writing for 3 hours. Okay. So what I mean to say is that when we say that we have restored the human function, make sure we have evaluated enough to figure it out that the function has been restored in the context in which it has to be performed. Okay. So that we need to understand every time. So create a situation where you can, you can map out the need for sustaining a 3 hours of writing effort. Okay, can that be created? And then now you can say that yes, you have restored. It is on the similar lines. Say, for example, they do earthquake studies. Okay. So when they do a lot of these structural engineering where they have to create structures, so they cannot create earthquakes to study, whether a building will sustain that kind of vibration of the earth. So they have been created, they have been simulated. Okay, they have been simulated. So the same thing we as an OT we have to do for human function. Okay, we can. There comes our craft. There comes our creativity. Okay, to be able to create that kind of scenario and let the patient perform on that. Okay, and then you conclude that yes, you are ready for writing in an exam. Okay, so this is very simple. We have to put it in a very simple way. Once you are convinced about this, then you will be mentally prepared to undertake that longer journey.
Yeah.
Okay. You'll be able to see through the small steps that will lead to, achieving the bigger task. Otherwise, it will all be a very, very abstract, very blurred image.
Yeah, it was a very good explanation about restoring function. Like, that contrast of you think if they can write one line, or, are you fulfilling that requirement of them able to write a 3-hour test? And in terms of the practicality of it, to think about it, like it could also be like, you create those activities. You're not there like 3 hours in front of them, but you create those kind of scenarios, like have you explained, of giving them those tasks or creating those kind of activities or exercises for them that they could complete in that amount of duration. And over time, we could take the data on how much progress they're making. Now we're towards the end of our questions, and I'm going to play this game with you. It's called the 5 seconds rule. And our theme is going to be the country. If you are aware about the 5-second rule game, I'll just explain it real quickly. So there's going to be different categories of questions, right? So you might get, for example, name one thing that you really love about your country, right? So now you have to answer within 5 seconds. As before the buzzer hits, before you hear the buzzer sound, you've got to come up with quick answers and answer those questions. So if you answer before the buzzer hits off, you get a point for it. And if you get all the points, you'll get a surprise. You'll get to win a surprise hamper that would be delivered to your office from courtesy NourishByNir. So
I'm not that confident about my reflexes. So, but I will try.
You will do it. So let's see. Are you ready? I'll start when you're ready.
Yeah, ready. We can start.
Your first question is, name 3 food items you love in your country, India.
Yeah, I like sweets. If you specifically name rasgulla, chicken tikka.
Okay, so you like sweets, rasgulla, and chicken tikka. Okay, I'll give you 1 point for this one. We need specific answers. Okay. So yeah, we got the rasgulla and chicken tikka too, but I'll give you the first one. So next question. 3 must-visit places in India.
It is Taj Mahal, it is Howrah Bridge, and it is Goa.
All right. Let's go to the next question. You get half point for that one. Let's go to the next one. 3 interesting facts about India.
Is the population, the startups, and the languages.
Oh, well, it's the 4th time. I'll give you a half point bonus because you completed well before time. So you could make up for the previous.
Thank you.
So your next one is, tell me one true stereotype about India.
Bollywood.
The next one, I got to set up my timer. All right. So tell me one stereotype about India which is false.
It's poverty.
That's a good one. Like since that movie came out about the Slumdog Millionaire, I think India had that reputation in the world about poverty. So that's a really good point. You did great in terms of answering the questions, and you did make up on some questions which you missed out. So
do I get the gift hamper?
You will. You do. You win. You'll get a gift hamper from NourishByNir soon. It was such a fun discussion with you,
Yeah.
Shared deeper insights into some aspects of occupational therapy. You shared about the real face of what's going on in India, how much it has changed, it has not, and what steps need to be taken in terms of bringing occupational therapy to the forefront, creating that value for it, and inspiring students in a way and giving practical ways to students when they enter the real world. So it has been such an amazing time discussing with you.
Yeah, it is absolute pleasure, to be discussing on the subject which I really, I'm quite, I really like discussing on these aspects. These are non-academic areas to discuss, but they are very profound. So I'm really happy and appreciative of you offering this platform to discuss this. And I really hope and wish all the best for these wonderful platforms that you have created for it to go a long way. Because you not only you relive your interests, it is also this platform will do a lot of service, as in near future, you have many more people, who would come and share their experiences, because I'm a strong believer that experiences, perspectives that can really help shape individuals' way of looking at things, and many big professions have grown up that way. So I'm sure even OT will do that. It will happen through your platform, right? So thank you for having me here.
That is my vision, to start the platform in a way, because I believe in lifelong learning. So, when I interact with guests, I learn a lot about, maybe on the OT front or their life journey, and rightly, like you mentioned, about their experiences and stories, because that's not something that you will learn in any course. That's something you get to know only when you interact with people. So this is my effort on that front, to bring that knowledge, and bring those experiences and share them with, millions of people out there who wouldn't get a chance to interact one-on-one. So thank you. Thank you for taking out the time and being on the show.
Yes, pleasure.